Mommies with the Maggots now.
Dead by Dawn.
Dead by Dawn! So, if you can guess, we are reviewing Evil Dead Rise. And it was probably the film I was the most excited about this year, to be perfectly honest. Like, I don't think there's anything else that was coming out that I was more, like, amped for and excited for. So there was a lot riding on this movie. By the way, we are Hannah Hart and
Nick Hart.
And we do a little thing called video drones. It's been a minute since we did our last one because we got COVID and it totally destroyed us for a really long time. And yeah, you know, but we're back pretty much. A little foggy, but we'll get there. And so yeah, if you haven't been here before, we review films that we like. We particularly like horror. It's kind of our favourite genre, but we like all the genres. And yeah, that's just a little Kiwi thing from our Kiwi home here in Aotearoa, New Zealand, that we do. We're actually really lucky in New Zealand because we do get a lot of there's a lot of cinema that's shot here and TV, which is it's a really growing industry in New Zealand. Power of the Dog, of course, was shot just not that far away from us down in Otago. And yeah, we've got quite a lot of strong connections with Hollywood, as well as being we get a lot of films really early as well.
New Zealand films being made though. Not much money goes into that.
That's a good point. Yeah. On an international sort of sense, we're very well utilised. But yeah, there aren't a heck of a lot of New Zealand films coming out. Though there will be a body horror about some university students coming out soon that we know a little bit about. So that's quite exciting.
Maybe this year, maybe early next year. I'm not gonna know.
Yeah. New Zealand films tend to be quite grim. I haven't seen many chirpy ones, but that seems to be kind of the status quo. But anyway, the New Zealand connection to Evil Dead Rise is that it was shot in New Zealand. And there are quite a few casts that are actually from New Zealand. They're Māori New Zealanders. And when I saw them, I was like, they look like they come from New Zealand, and they do. And then there are 3 Australian actors in the movie as well. And Ash vs. the Evil Dead, which is a really fun, practical effects heavy Evil Dead TV series, was also shot in New Zealand. So we've got all these lovely little connections going on. It's quite special. I love that we've got that link with this film in particular because it's just so good. We really liked it. Yeah, so a lot riding on this film. Not a lot of films that are kind of like this gory and this shocking and this kind of demented tend to come out much anymore, which I find really sad. So, and also this is a very practical effects heavy franchise, and of course, which was, thank goodness it was continued. In fact, they think that the reason why the 2013 kind of not really a remake, but kind of a variation on the theme of Deadites was regarded as one of the best sort of remakes in horror history is because it stuck to the practical effects, which is what the Thing did all wrong. And yeah, they've really leaned into that with this film. They've done a lot of great stuff with practical effects. A lot of blood, really good looking blood, which it didn't quite meet the same amount that the 2013 version did, which apparently, even though they don't really have proof, is the most bloody, the most excessive use of fake blood in any given movie. But there is an awful lot in this.
There is
an awful lot, so that's very lovely.
I think the director said there's 6,500 litres of fake blood used.
Yeah, I think they said it would take 1,113 people to be drained of all their blood to have that much blood in reality, which is quite a lovely little fact. And speaking of the director, that's Lee Cronin. He's an Irish director. He's known for a film called Hole in the Ground, which is a really creepy little Irish film about a hole in the ground in a forest. And it's
about mental illness, and son, mother and son.
Yeah, is it? Well, it could be mental illness. It also could be something else. But yeah, there is this theme of family, a mother and a son, which we've got in Evil Dead Rise. We've got a mother and her children and her sort of wayward sister that she keeps calling a groupie, but isn't a groupie, she's a guitar technician. So that's quite a funny thing. Oh, by the way, I should say that these little items that I'm wearing here were actually made for the actress Lana Di Lorenzo, who plays Kelly Maxwell in Ash vs. the Evil Dead. They were made for her. I've even got photos of her wearing them. And some unknown lovely Twitterer who also loves horror sent them to me, so that's why I thought I'd better wear them. It's pretty darn cool. I've even got this. I'm not actually sure how you're supposed to wear this, but this has got some words on it. What does that say?
Oh, it's upside down.
I wonder.
Forge your path.
Yeah, it says forge your path. So there we go. Isn't that cool? I don't wear them very often because I'm scared I'll destroy them, but very cool items from a very cool production. Where was I? I totally lost
The
it.
director's previous film, I kind of
Families.
wasn't. I was hoping this film would be really good, and it was better than I hoped.
Hole in the Ground.
No, Evil Dead Rise.
Oh.
But I wasn't expecting that much, just because the ratings were quite low for a Hole in the Ground, and I thought, how's he going to suddenly become like a great director? But then ratings aren't always indicative of how good a film is, but they are a helpful guide if you're kind of looking to see something out of the blue.
Yeah, it's sad though, because a lot of films that we really adore get quite low ratings, and that's quite sad. So I don't know, I thought Hole in the Ground was actually quite solid. It's a really creepy film, and it does play on this idea of like, maybe some kind of psychosis, or perhaps there is something other going on, which I really enjoyed. And I love the themes of like parents, especially mothers and children, because it's usually quite a safe kind of subject, and it's pretty predictable, and parents don't really show a heck
We've
of a lot
watched a couple of sort of mothering horrors lately, Dead Ringers and False Positive.
Yeah, Dead Ringers, the TV show, so good. So good. I freaking loved that. It captured a lot of great moments from Cronenberg's masterpiece, Dead Ringers, but it also brought something new, which is not unlike what Evil Dead Rise has done. It is a standalone film in of itself, which is great for people that are just getting into the Deadite universe, but it's also builds on the mythology and the world building and the sort of, everything about the world of Deadites, but without making it seem kind of dry or stale. It's very, very, very fresh. And one of the great examples of that is the Necronomicon in this movie, which is definitely the best Necronomicon, in my opinion.
Isn't it Necronomicon?
Necronomicon, which is the Book of the Dead. It's bound in human flesh. And this one, the illustrations are really extra creepy.
They're better than the last film.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. And it's got these kind of like bone teethy things that it's bound with.
Yeah, that was cool.
Ooh, which was so cool. And the veins on it are sort of slightly pulsing.
There are lots of references to the earlier films, though. I mean, it's the second film in the franchise without Bruce Campbell, but he did actually have a few cameos in it.
I thought it was just a verbal cameo.
That's still a cameo.
Yeah.
He, like, the first record that they play, we'll have to put spoilers on this, is his voice. And then there's like an eye gouging scene in the hallway. And
it's spat.
That's him a recording of him furiously biting into an apple.
Yes, I had that as well. I thought that was quite neat. Sam Raimi, the guy who came up, Saint Raimi, he came up with the whole Evil Dead thing. He also did this great film called Drag Me to Hell. So good. And that's also got an eye popping mouth thing. And and that happened also in one of the original Evil Dead movies.
It's the closest film he's made to his first three Evil Dead films that he directed.
Just so fun. So yeah, he's into the eyeballs popping out and landing in people's mouths. So you won't be disappointed with a wee moment like that.
And they named a lot of the characters in the film after actors that played the original, like in the original three films.
Yeah, lots of cool little references and Easter eggs scattered about there.
It was a real pity though, like this is the first film that doesn't include Sam Raimi's car.
The car, yeah.
His Oldsmobile, whatever it's called.
But apparently they reference it in the chainsaw. Instead of it being red, they've made it yellow, so that kind of references the cars. I mean, yeah, there's always going to be a chainsaw in these films. But I won't spoil whether or not limbs are severed. But that's often...
Of course they are.
Well, but not...
How could they not be?
But
it wouldn't be an Evil Dead
film. Limbs are severed, but not like... Well, I don't want to give it away, but it's... There are some people that are more... They're more intact than usual, but don't get us wrong, the gore is extreme, which made me so happy. I almost like shed a little tear. Like, at this moment when I was watching, I just felt so proud and so happy that we got to see something that is this gory and this demented on the big screen. And it was going to go straight to a streaming service, but apparently, thank goodness, audience were like, we like this. So they did make a theatrical release, which is, man, there's just not...
The one good time test screening has been a positive thing.
It's been, thank goodness. And I think because it is doing really well, both critically and via audiences, that we will hopefully get more of these delightfully dark, like twisted films. And don't get me wrong, these are films that I don't know. I just think a lot of that will really freak out a lot of people because they're I think so. I think it's probably too much for a lot of people, especially because, you know, subverting the whole family unit and making that really twisted and really scary. But there is this really gleeful sort of demented sense of humor through it, which could make it more palatable for some people. But this is for people who like more extreme violence and gore and don't mind.
The Evil Dead films always have been. I mean, it was one of the 85 or whatever video nasties that were banned by the British government. The first Evil Dead.
Which normally means that they're good.
I've said this before, but I don't like the first Evil Dead nearly as much. It's still okay, but I feel like people who say that it's the best one are kind of like the people who tend to always rate sequels down, which is silly. Like, it's just a thing that they just think if it's not the original, then it's not good. But the second one had a little bit more money, not too much, and it was just perfect. And it kind of went way more overboard, I think. And then the third, in a good way, and then the third one was they had too much money, and it was just the sort of epic kind of night castle thing.
I think that one's the most fun and funny and most family friendly. It's not really that scary. No, I don't consider Army of the Dead scary. So that's the one that you could watch with the family. That's not too scary. And of course, the 2013 version is super dark and super gory and quite disturbing. And so I was just so glad, because sometimes it feels like we're going a bit backwards with the horror. But no, this is a very modern horror and very refreshing, but also very clearly influenced by many great films that came before. In fact, there's quite a few references to The Shining, which is one of the best horror films ever made, in my opinion. There's this elevator scene that is just such a big nod to The Shining, and then there's a moment with the mother outside of the apartment, and they sort of go up from underneath to do the shot, which is very Jack, and when he's locked up in the meat locker.
In the intro with the forest and the lake and stuff.
Absolutely, yeah. It's sort of
obviously a fan.
It's quite funny. There's a lot of things in there, if you're really a big fan of this universe, are pretty obvious. Like at the beginning, Deadite's kind of like, it was really cool. It was one of the first films that kind of had this technique. When the Deadites sort of come in, you're kind of coming from their perspective, and they're sort of whooshing around through the forest and sort of zooming, and yeah, it's just a really cool camera technique that adds to that sense of dread, and it's used a lot in Ash vs. the Evil Dead to really effectively. But the beginning starts off like that. But even as I was watching it, I was like, this is a cool reference, but it seems a lot like a drone, and it is a drone, which is quite a cute little, like, they sort of twist a little bit. And right from the get-go, there's a really gory de-scalping moment that was just... And they really didn't like hold back. They really showed that scalp.
It was great.
Just the lion there.
Yeah, really good.
So I think I think it really was like, we're not going to hold back here. If you can't handle this, we're going to show you what it's like straight from the beginning, so you can walk out if you find this a little bit too disturbing. But there's this moment where the possessed character is rising up from the lake and the sun's sort of setting, and it was so gorgeous.
Speaking of audience reaction, there's a really sort of funny video on YouTube with this post-screening Q&A, and there's this guy who's just watched the entire film is like yelling at them, like,
worst movie ever.
Yeah,
that's what he was saying. But he watched it all.
I couldn't hear what he was saying, but he storms out and the camera kind of follows him, and Bruce Campbell said, well, why did you sit through the whole film just to say that then?
I think it's kind of, there will be some reactions just like with Fury Road, where people are like, where's Ash? Why was the women all like strong and had chainsaws? There will always be people like that just can't handle the idea of like updating things or gender swapping things. But I mean, the last two Evil Dead movies, including this one and the last one, had a female protagonist. So I don't know. I think there's probably some of that involved, because a lot of people didn't like Fury Road because it wasn't the Mad Max that I know, you know. So yeah, I think that there was probably that kind of like incel kind of cringy mentality behind it. Just didn't like the idea that it wasn't like a man saving the day. And the characters, they're so good. You care about them very quickly. They don't spend forever trying to make you care about these characters and building up the family dynamic. It's very quick, which is good, because I want to get into the action. But being able to make you connect with these characters and care about them and see their different personalities very clearly in a very short space of time, that was very, very well done, I thought. Yeah.
The mother... The actress who plays the mother,
Ellie's the mum. Alyssa Sutherland, she's Aussie lady.
And she used Jim Carrey in The Mask as like something to inspire her performance, which was really interesting.
I thought that was quite cool. She was great. Very, very, very physical performance, which really helped. I mean, there's some stunt people involved, but a lot of it was her. And it was just such a physical role, and it was so creepy, and she really seemed to be enjoying it, saying all these very dark and twisted things. There was one line that I really liked about how, like, she sort of has this lovely little dream where she was all together as a family, and then she sort of cut them all open and got inside them so she could be a family forever. It's like, that's when you get, when she's fully sort of possessed.
What she says exactly, but it's
so
great.
Good. I really liked that it was like a family that was getting possessed and torn apart.
That's what Bruce Campbell said. Like, they asked him in this interview, I can't remember the wording, but it was like, you know, do you mind not being in the films anymore? And he said, well, I think it's perfect because it's always been about unheroic people. And he said, like, a family is like the most normal thing. It's like universal.
Yeah.
But,
yeah.
So he was quite pleased.
It's going to offend a lot of people, but that's kind of why I love it. Because it did push things, and it did do things that will make people very uncomfortable, I think. But it's just so much fun to see, like, women, mothers playing these really extreme, unusual roles and saying terrible, terrible things about their parasitic children. It was just, I don't know, I don't think it's a mean-spirited film.
No, you say that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Parasitic children, but not about you.
Just like biologically, children are technically parasites. And I just find that quite fascinating that, like, you know, a fetus is actually a parasite. Technically, biologically speaking, they suck from the mother. I just find that kind of quite hilarious and quite fascinating. But yeah, I mean, as a mother, I would give this 2 thumbs up. And at the same time, I would think a lot of mothers would not be able to handle this. And that's fair enough. You know, different strokes for different folks. But I personally, as a mother, really liked this. I just thought it was neat. I just hate seeing all these flowery mothers that just do, you know, like little tiny shocking things. Like, it was just nice to see this completely unhinged performance, and, you know, just terrorizing her offspring, and just that trauma was really quite neat to watch. And yeah, it still had moments where I was like, oh, which is good, because it's pretty hard to make me go, oh, unless it's a more like gritty, realistic kind of violent scene. I find the more realistic stuff a lot harder to watch. So yeah, there's a sort of playfulness to this film, which is a strange thing to say for a film like this, but there is this mischievous, playful kind of...
the first 3 are very playful. I mean, it's not nearly as playful as those ones, but
I think it's more
it's somewhere between that and the quite serious 2013 film.
That one wasn't very playful at all. I think that one was a lot more serious.
There wasn't any humour. I mean,
no.
That's why a lot of people didn't like it when it came out, because they were expecting something like the original films. But it's, you know, over the years it's developed like a real cult following.
I really like how serious it is, but I also really liked how this new one does have that really demented humour. And I really loved, there's like little references to the different kinds of Deadites over the years, like the ones with the white eyes and things like that. And just the things that they say, they're just so gross and twisted. And I just think, who wrote this? This is so good.
The pizza place is even named after Henrietta, who gets stuck down the fruit cellar.
The fruit cellar.
Fruit cellar.
Dead by Dawn too, and they're all shouting that. So good. It's so brutal, but yeah, somehow it managed just to dance on that edge of not being, like, to me, particularly offensive, while still being extremely brutal and quite frightening. But yeah, and it's very Lovecraftian, I thought, this one had like a lot more kind of a Lovecraft vibe than ones I've seen before. There's like something that happens with the Deadites that is very, towards the end, that I think is very, very Lovecraftian, very weird. A little bit of colour out of space going on there, which was really fun to see. Yeah, it's been really interesting that they've taken it away from the cabin in the woods, where it's always been, except for when Ash
Bruce
goes
Campbell
to like...
he said it's about time.
Yeah, so we've got it set in this apartment building, which
it's all based around
so
the book
cool.
now.
Yes. So these 3 books of the dead, they're referenced in Army of the Dead. So it's really cool to think... Army of Darkness. And it's really cool to see that, you know, these 3 books and bringing that into the lore. I don't know. I'm just really excited because I kind of can see from this where we could go with it. And I would love a prequel with the priests and stuff that were behind the records that get found.
I'm sure there'll be more films now because I think it's been pretty successful.
I think so. I think the audience want stuff like that. I mean, there's just not enough for us, like,
Yeah, well, it only
kind of fanatics.
cost 12 million, which is quite cheap for a
Wow,
horror,
that
and
is
it's
really
made 88 million so far. So
Well, there you go.
That's good.
People like to be scared. So we went to see it on the biggest cinema we could in Christchurch, which you've got to see on the big screen. It is a big screen feast. It is a delicious treat. Yeah, and the apartment is so cool. And I actually really like the apartment. It was kind of crumbling and falling apart and kind of very dark. And so the whole thing's shot like at night, and it's raining, which are all good things.
Some annoying kids next to me though keep talking. I don't think they were there to see the movie. They were there to kind of like talk to each other
and show off about, oh, I'm not scared about this. I don't think they were kids. They were drinking, so they must have been at least 18. But yeah, there was a gaggle of very noisy young women who were kind of talking about how they were drunk or drinking, like kind of trying to be all badass on a Friday night. But it was just kind of lame. I wish they had shut up because they were very loud. But I normally quite like the audience responding to a film, but this was like,
yeah,
it was annoying.
I like audience responses. I mean, I like seeing a film in a big theatre on a Friday night. It's like, yeah, it makes it more fun. It's like being at a sports game, but my kind of sports game.
Yeah, neither of us really like sports. So, Drag Race and horror movies, you know. It was sad actually when we saw Bones and all. There really weren't many people in the theatre, so it was. I wish I could have heard the response from that. Yeah, and we went to see another film which we need to talk about, which was the other film this year that we're really excited about, Bo Was Afraid. So we saw that not long after we saw it. So that was really cool, and we'll definitely have to talk about that. And that was a really strange because me and my son, and I think Nick, I couldn't hear him as much, we were just, it was one of the funniest movies I've ever seen.
Cackling all the way through.
It was so funny, but it was just dead silence all around us. So.
Yeah, I was like, are these people zombies or...
I don't know if they found it funny. We found it hilarious, but it was nice to hear a bit of a response from the audience with. So yeah, I'd just go see it on a night when there's quite a few people around. That's quite a fun way to do it, except for unless you've got a group of really loud young women next to you that are just kind of just talking really loudly throughout it. It's weird. Some people seem to think there's like it's almost like they're trying to prove their bravado to each other by watching horror films. I don't know, I just go because I really freaking enjoy it. Like I love it. I've got nothing to prove. I just sheer enjoyment and delight that such films are created.
So what would you give this one?
I'm giving it a 9 out of 10, but that we do like we do hearts, so we do like 5 hearts each, and so I'm gonna do. Well, if I only get 5 hearts, I'm giving it 5 out of 5 hearts because it was freaking awesome.
Well, I don't know how does this. I'm terrible at maths. I would give it a 7.5.
So you give it like we'll just say we'll give you a 3, so I'll get 8 out of 10 hearts.
Okay.
From us. You give it Nick's stingy with his hearts.
No, I'm just realistic with my hearts.
I don't know. I tend to like really love what I love and really not like what I don't like, you know. So, but I'd give this a. So together we'd give it an 8.
I thought it was good. It did get a bit. It got a. Like I think I fell asleep for a minute.
Yeah, but he always falls asleep in movies, which is
so
so bizarre.
It just started dragging a little bit in the last third. It was became a bit repetitive, and I don't know, like the way it was made as well. Like there weren't enough sort of surprises. But I thought this about the 2013 one when it came out as well.
Right.
So maybe I'll like it more. But I loved that intro. I kind of. And I did like the claustrophobic setting in the apartment. I love sort of a rainy nighttime apartment movies. But yeah, it was better than I thought, but it still could have been better, I think, a little bit.
No, I was expecting a lot, and I thought it totally delivered. Yes. It's just what I look for in a movie, especially a horror film. It's so dark and so delightful and so gory, and yeah, I want to see more films like this, so I'm glad it's doing well. And go out and support it and talk about it, tweet about it, share images so that there's more hype for it, because we need more films like this, because there's a lot of boring movies being made. This isn't boring. This was really fun.
Indeed.
Yeah, so I guess that's it for us.
So we'll see you soon with our Bo Was Afraid review.
Well, it's still fresh in our noggins because there was a lot going on in that movie. It was a long movie, but it was really, really good. So, thanks for coming. Thanks for for staying. Give us some comments. Tell us what you think. Tell us if you like Deadites. What's your favourite Deadite? What's your favourite variety of Deadite? Because they're all pretty good. And we'll see you later. Bye.
Bye.